Hello. Welcome, guys, to Two Guys and Hockey Talk with my wonderful, and I will say it this year, my beautiful-looking bearded co-host, Pawel the Cat, and now known as the Insider. How you doing, bud?
I'm doing well. Thank you for the compliment. I think this is the first one in 3 seasons you've given me one. So in our 4th season, I guess you can really turn a leaf and turn a corner. So thank you. But welcome back, everyone. This is season 4 of Two Guys and Hockey Talk. We're excited to be back to talk hockey, all things hockey, women's hockey, junior hockey, KHL hockey, and of course your favorite NHL hockey, as is mine. Evan, how's your summer been?
Man, it has been jam-packed. Got out to the lake in British Columbia, Canada. No, never been out there. You got to try it. Did a lot of stuff with the family. Did a lot of water sports. It was a blast. It was a great, nice, warm summer for us. So I am perfectly happy. But I got to say that I am starved to talk hockey this season.
Yeah, there's quite a bit to go around because of the fact that we've been without hockey for a few months. And I'm kind of getting the itch, you know. I really need to find some ways of entertaining myself, right? But there has been some really good hockey in the off season. You know, the World Juniors, the Women's World Hockey. It's been exciting, and we're back now, so we're gonna dive into it. But before we do, grab your bevy.
Sounds good, man. Here we go.
Cheers.
Cheers.
And cheers to all our followers. Remember to like, share, subscribe. We love hearing and seeing from you guys. This is more interactive now, as we chatted about yesterday. You can type your comments. We'll do our best to respond immediately. I will tell you all the right, correct things. Evan knows nothing, so he's just going to jarble his way through this whole conversation. But Evan, let's start with your biggest surprise.
Okay, before we do that, I just want to make sure to put a shout out. If you're joining for the first time, nothing may look new. If you've been with us for some of the seasons or last season, we have a new format, as was mentioned. We have our live interactive live time right now. For example, hey, James already wants us to talk about this extension today. James, I guarantee we will talk about the extension. But anyway, guys, put in your comments. We'll maybe get to some of them. Some we may be able to do, some we won't. But I want to say, make sure on all your platforms, Facebook, on YouTube, on Twitter, whether it's myself at revingev, or if we're talking to Pawel, who runs our Two Guys account, you can chat with him over there, as well as we are working with the Sports Empire Network in partnership this year. Big hats off. If you want to talk wrestling, NBA, NHL, NASCAR, whatever it is, we got podcasts for you. So check them out, as well as they're airing our show right now at the same time. If you're watching on there, guys, welcome to hockey, baby!
Woo! We got this. Jim's joining us, too. We're doing well, Jim. We're doing well.
Hey, Jim. Thanks, man.
Let's start with the obvious because, the audience wants to hear it. What are your thoughts on Tim Stützle signing with the Ottawa Senators long-term that doesn't take effect till next year, a contract that is quite hefty, $8.35 million per year for 8 years.
Okay.
And to add to that, your thoughts on what Ottawa did this summer with Pierre Dorion.
Okay. Oh, man, that's a whole bunch of stuff. How about I just answer the Tim Stützle stuff? I'll make some connections, and then I'm going to let you guys give them some time because I need to answer a few people here. So James is already telling us he thinks it's a value deal. I'm going to tell you that it's not a value deal in the first 2 years. The first 2 years. So this is opposite. And we're going to get to Nazem Kadri, and we're going to talk about JT Miller. These are old guys. And I don't mean any offense to them because I'm much older. They could almost be they could be my kids, in fact. But the point is their contracts are okay in the first 2 to 3. In this case, the first 2 to 3 could be a little bit more of a problem in Stützle. He has not averaged. He's got a .66, I think, somewhere around there. But I want to make mention, I have no problem with the Stützle deal because of his draft placing. I put him at the second best player in that draft year on my Revs top 15. I have no issues with it. But I want to say, Sens fans, you got to quit ripping the Mitch Marner deal, and you got to quit ripping the William Nylander deal if you're okay with Brady Tkachuk deal and you're okay with Tim Stützle deal. Because those issues that you had with the Toronto Maple Leafs, you're doing the same. And right now, people are signing for what could possibly be when it's not a point-per-game player already. And then with the older guys, like just mentioned, hey, Dustin, how you doing, man? Great point. So he's asking about Johnny Gaudreau. So we'll come to all that stuff. We got to talk about these older guys and these contracts. But let me get your take. I have no issues with it. I think it's a good value. I just don't think in year 1 and 2.
I think what a lot of teams are doing, and it was just brought up by Johnny Gaudreau, is that he walked and Calgary got nothing for it. Now they recovered, but I think a lot of GMs got spooked at the whole Johnny Gaudreau and even the Matthew Tkachuk situation in Calgary. And so I think a lot of these GMs are looking at their young core and saying, we want to lock you up long-term and we believe in you. And for Pierre Dorion, they talked about being in it this year. Now, last year they were plagued by injuries. They didn't have a lot of depth. Their goaltending carousel was crazy, which is a little bit more stable now. But again, they finished strong with the season this year, winning 5 of their last 6. So that was solid. But I think they believe in these guys. Josh Norris, they believe in Tim Stützle. They believe in Brady Tkachuk. And then they bring in these veterans like Alex DeBrincat, who can put up 40 goals twice, and, Claude Giroux, who's a veteran and can stabilize something. And you bring in Cam Talbot, and, you want to make a push for it. And you believe that this is your core that will get you there. Is it worth it? It could be a little bit overpriced right now, but a lot of people said the same thing about David Pasternak's deal as well as Leon Draisaitl's, right? Even Mitch Marner, as you mentioned, right? So there's definitely that. Now, to bring it all around to Toronto, come on, Evan, this isn't TSN, Toronto Sports Network, right? Come on.
Okay, I don't know if you're just playing with the Toronto Maple Leafs fan or if you seriously think those were bad deals, but this is a good deal. So which one is it? Are you playing with the Maple Leaf fans, or do you actually think those were bad deals and this is a good deal?
I like to leave a little mystery in the show so that people can keep guessing what I'm thinking, right? I do it to my wife all the time.
Okay, so let's look at this. So James is asking us this question right now. He's saying when the cap's higher, players making $15 million is going to be a value deal. So I know there's a lot of talk out there that in about 3 years, so not next year, the cap's going to go up, but say in 3 years' time, some of these deals, so signing an 8-something deal would be like signing, in 3 years, a deal that might be worth $10 or $11 million.
The Nathan McKinnon deal, which was signed, which was seen egregious at the time for 6.5, and now is probably one of the best, if not the best, contract in the NHL. So I'm not saying it's bad for Stützle. I just think he needs to continue to progress. He's gotten built over the summer. He looked really good. He's trained, and he's going to have some really solid wingers. Now, I don't know what the lineup's going to be because, it doesn't exactly – you don't know who meshes well together. Is it going to be Giroux on his wing, or is it going to be DeBrincat, or both of them? Is it Brady Tkachuk on top line, or will he drop down, because he's playing normally with Norris? So, essentially, what it comes down to is there's going to be a mix and match.
Sure.
But I think Stützle can take that next step. And like you said, he was a second-round pick. He's got to prove himself, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. So, okay.
Or third
So, who's?
He was the third first round pick.
Yeah. No, I said I selected him second. And by
Yeah.
the way, I still stand by it. Stutzel's much better than Byfield. If you're a Los Angeles fan, I'm sorry to tell you, you're not going to have a player that probably should have been picked in the top 10. I just do not see Quentin Byfield being that player. And I'll tell you why I never saw him as that player. I never saw the aggression as a player, the drive as a player that you need to see. He reminded me a lot of what we saw in Dylan Strome when he was playing with the Erie Otters in the Ontario Hockey League back in the day. And I love the point that was been made by Jim. And Jim, you're absolutely right. A lot of moves over the summer, but Anaheim is a player that you're going to need to be looking out for. Absolutely right. It was a shock that they made some of the moves that they've actually made. I think that they're ready, and they got some great players in their system. We'll obviously take some more time. In fact, that we have not had any guests come in that are writers or working in the organization or around it or with the Anaheim Ducks. So maybe that's something we could be able to put together for you guys.
Agreed.
James.
And hey, out to Hans.
Yeah.
Go.
I was going to say, James says he's a Florida fan.
Oh, well, they've made some big moves. So I'm interested if James is happy with what Bill Zito did this offseason, because they traded out a lot of guys, but they know how to get a good value contract. But I mean, Huberdeau is a big loss, even though he's older, and I would not want to pay what Calgary paid for him.
Okay, so let's ask James this question. James, you said they are bad deals. Now, are you meaning the deal that was signed for Matthew Tkachuk, or are you actually saying the deals for Stützle you think are a bad deal? So you can just put it there in the comments, and we'll come back to that at some point in time here. I know he's asking about DeBrincat and Giroux. I want to mention this. I'm going to hold off. Let's not talk about the Ottawa Senators. I want to just put a quick plug in. For some of you guys, you guys follow different sites out there in hockey. Love them or hate them. You got followers that love listening and reading everything at Hockey Buzz. Well, we have Rick Francis, who's going to be joining us. He is one of the contributors and writers for the Ottawa Senators. So we're going to talk with him. I believe we're scheduled him for October 12th. So he'll be coming live onto our show. So you can ask him all these great questions, guys. I know it's a little bit of a wait time, but you never know here. So look at that. Hey, I just want to say this, man. James agrees. He agrees about Byfield. There you go. I'm right.
Well, you get one. James, I'm sorry you think that. He's never right. But okay, you get one, Evan. That's okay. Now, people were asking about Johnny Gaudreau. What are your thoughts on the deal? Because to me, it was a head scratcher. And to me, I don't see Columbus as a contender. I'm sorry, Columbus fans. You can at me all you want. But I don't know what that team is doing. And when you've just lost your potentially number one center, Alex Texier, who's taking some time off for the year, who is your number one center that's really going to, perform, like play with Voracek and Gaudreau, or even Line A if you're putting that top lineup together? Like, what is Columbus, right?
Yeah. Well, why would you got to think about it. They got players in the system. They're working. They needed to sign Line A. And I'm telling you, they don't get Gaudreau, they don't sign Line A. I think it was a part of parcel for him to stick around, and they need to get players that are willing to play there. And so they're going to find players. They're going to overpay them. And it was a good opportunity for Johnny Gaudreau to go to a place where it's a bit Canadian. Columbus is probably one of the better places that represents a lot in Canada. Now, we're going to have Jamie Basco. He is a sports writer for the Philadelphia Flyers, credentialed media guy, and the Phantoms. We're going to ask him this question because I keep hearing that there was no interest from the Philadelphia Flyers, of serious interest, for Johnny Gaudreau. But yet that's where Johnny wanted to go. He didn't want to go to Jersey. An offer was put out there, even though it was his hometown. I want to hear what Jamie has to say. In 2 weeks.
Jamie he can tip in, but it's because the Philadelphia Flyers didn't even bother to make an attempt to bring in Johnny Gaudreau. Where
that's the point. That's the point.
Know how to move out money.
Well, that's what we hear.
But
that's what we hear. But on September 21st, that's our scheduled day. I'm trying to keep all these times in mind. Jamie Basco will be on our show. I want to ask him. He's a little bit in the know there. Let's see if he heard any of these. Is there actual seriousness to what we've heard over here in the West, right? Because sometimes it gets so separated and it gets mushy and stuff like that around that whole cycle. And by the way, I will come back and I want to talk about Sutter over in Calgary, but we're not going to talk about that right now. Let's just go take a look at a few of the comments you guys got on here. So Hans is saying, "Hey, Pawel and everyone else." What do you mean, everyone else? There's nothing about me, Hans. Come on, where's Franz?
it's because you were dissing Toronto, right?
Oh! Look at this. Okay, Tim Stutzel is the line with DeBrincat and Giroux was a tweet
Makes
today,
sense.
and absolutely. And I guess when they were asking that question and they were saying where he was, I guess the coach was in behind, just smiling and nodding his head. I heard the same thing. But James actually is saying that Mitch Marner was a bad deal, as was Tavares. I will agree.
I will agree. The Tavares deal was too much.
Yeah,
Mitch
was not. Mitch was not.
I disagree.
Look at this guy. This guy is a point per game player making the 10 million. Are you serious? Yet you signed Stutzel for 8 point something and he's a 0.66. Marner's better than Gaudreau. Marner's better than Gaudreau and all these other players. He's young. He's everything that they need. He's probably a top 8 player in the entire league. How is that a bad deal? Name me one team that doesn't want him, that if they could get him, that they would actually refuse. I don't see a team out there.
I agree. I'm not saying Marner isn't wanted and other teams wouldn't push for it. I mean, Columbus, there was a rumor that they were going to offer sheet him from Toronto because they really wanted him to play for them. The problem is he struggled to perform in the playoffs. Last year was a little bit better versus Tampa Bay, but the previous years, for somebody who's getting paid big money, he's supposed to perform. And the honest fact is, like, regular season, he's a great player, but in the playoffs, he just doesn't show up, and he penalty kills, power play, you can say all you want, but you need a bit more grit and size, and sometimes size helps you win playoffs, right?
There's your centerman. There it's mentioned. Dustin's coming in.
I forgot about Cole.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I know James is referring to the deal was done for his wife. I'd just like to mention that there's more to it than just the wife. I know that was a big part of the storyline. That was a part of the decision-making. But it's understood that there was the potential and an offer in the hospital, the children's hospital, that was there. But remember at the beginning, and I'm going to put a little teaser here for later in the show. Remember at the beginning when I started talking about him leaving, there was something more. And I brought up, could it be because of Sutter? I still want to come back and talk about this because there's a couple interesting things that came out just more recently. So I do want to talk about that. All right. So let's go a little bit forward here. Okay. I'm actually sitting here and I'm thinking, let's move over to Vancouver. Let's talk about Vancouver for a little bit here. We know that there was a ton of moves made, especially in the front office. In the front office with Vancouver, a lot of women were brought in. They have a lot of assistant general managers. I haven't even gone and done the study. So there's a few of you guys, you're fans of the Vancouver Canucks. Maybe throw them out there in your comments section while we start talking here. But a lot of players came in. And so here's the big thing. Was this going to be a rebuild or was it not? And they were going to move players. They were going to do this. And then it's like they changed midstream. I know on Elliot Friedman, on his 32 Thoughts, in their discussion with Merrick, they started talking about how Merrick talks, could this be, they signed Miller so that they could potentially trade him if it doesn't go well. They have all these different ideas. I'm going to say this, Pawel. I'm going to say that when you have the players they have right now and you can sign them, how do you rebuild and still keep those players during the next 4 years? You got to actually win. You got to win. And just like Calgary, they didn't shut it all down and just go tank like Edmonton did. Now, no offense, but Edmonton just tanked. They just did not bring in the supports and the players, and they got their drafts. But listen, it worked. it worked. Whether you hate the Oilers or not, it worked. Whether you hate the Penguins, it worked. Sometimes you need to tank, but some people will work on the run. That's what Holland did back in the day, right? And so instead of tanking again, Holland decided to kind of refuel things and take advantage of McDavid's time. I mean, it's absolutely crazy. So give me your take. What they're doing, is it good? Is it not good?
I think Vancouver has struggled to rebuild because they don't believe in it, because they believe in, I mean, whether it's ticket sales, and it's a business, right? I mean, the NHL is a business and you want to make money, and every business succeeds the longer it goes. And of course, what does that entail? Get into the playoffs, because you are guaranteed at least 4 extra games, right? So that brings in additional revenue. I think the thing with Vancouver is that, and I talked to a family member who's a big fan, and he's there.
Yeah,
they would have preferred if they rebuilt, but the problem is that they think they're in it because of the success that Bruce Boudreau brought after they got rid of the previous coach. And I think that they're looking at it and saying, listen, we have a chance to make it. We had a great December and January. Just, it's so hard to play catch up by the end, that
exactly.
If you don't make the playoffs, if you're not kind of in the playoff race by November, December, you're kind of out of it. It's tough. So I'm not opposed to JT Miller signing because, well, like you said, Evan, where do you replace that player? So yeah, you could trade JT Miller and get a prospect and a pick, and you talk about picks being fairy dust. Like, what does it mean until it comes to fruition?
Second round and lower picks are fairy dust,
even first
but
round.
not.
You look at the 2012.
Yeah, but the first round has a pretty high percentage, right? Really high in the top 15. The bottom half, it's okay.
We're gonna have Mike Smith to get on here and
share
some data. But I think they signed him. It's good. Is that going to leave room for Bo Horvat? It's going to be interesting because he's a key piece. But I think the biggest thing for that team is Elias Pettersson getting going. Right, he has struggled, and I know he's had some surgery, but he needs to push.
Well, this will be an interesting year, and don't forget he can play wing. So I'm just going to come back really quick on Gaudreau because we're going to go over to a piece on Calgary that I want to kind of talk about too. So James is saying, no, he wanted to go home, Evan, when it comes to Gaudreau. So I just want to make sure that you do know this, James, that it is over 700 miles away from his home where he ended. Home is not the United States. That's not the point. His home is outside of New Jersey. He would have played for the Devils if it was just about home. He had a bigger and better offer for the New Jersey Devils. It was a bit of his wife. It was a bit of trying to be somewhat closer. And it was a combination of a mix of a few things. And I'm going to share, James, why I believe that there was a little bit more of a push to not sign because of Daryl Sutter. But I know you can have a different take, and you're perfectly allowed to have that opinion. No problem. We respect that. Okay, so let me talk about Sutter. So interesting. There was some stuff that just came out. Now, do you remember this, Pawel? I actually talked about the fact that I believe that there were certain ways that Daryl plays the game that some of the players were not happy with, and two of them were Tkachuk and also Gaudreau. Do you remember me talking about that? And I said, could there be something behind this? So I had talked about it, but nothing was official. The source I'm going to cite today is not the same person, but it's along the same lines. Now, I don't know if you guys know, but there's a free agent right now that is talking about re-signing, and it is Ruzicka. If you guys are familiar, and they're talking about bringing him back. Well, he sat down just recently now on a podcast with, if you guys remember, Marian Gaborik. And Gaborik, Marian Gaborik played under Daryl in Los Angeles. Now, he did win the Stanley Cup, but he said, hey, Sutter is tough to play for. He's really tough to play for, not just because he demands a lot, but the way he does it. And watch this. This is something else that was brought up. So Ruzicka, and I don't know if he's going to get in trouble for this or if it's going to mean he's resigning if Sutter finds out, but he talked about how Tkachuk insisted on captaincy. He insisted on captaincy. So this could have been a main reason why he left and he didn't want to sign long term. That could be some really interesting stuff that could start brewing about. Now, let's face it, he's not your typical Sutter player, Gaudreau, and that's just my opinion. But I think that mixed in with his wife, wants to get back. He wants to get as close as he can to home. And Philly wasn't giving him that opportunity, his lifelong dream. But he probably didn't want to have his kids right in Jersey, raising a child or two in that area. So that's just my take on. But to give you a little bit more context, now that someone has actually come out, I wanted to share that with you guys.
Fair enough.
So what's your thoughts on Calgary, man? Better, worse? Where are we at?
I think they are better to some extent. The only downside is that the players they acquired a little bit older than Johnny Gaudreau and Matthew Tkachuk. And I honestly thought Brad Treliving would lose his job, given that like what had happened. So the fact that he made that trade with Florida and kind of saved bacon for the Calgary Flames, and was able to also sign Huberdeau long term and get a first round pick, and get a prospect out of it. Yeah,
absolutely.
Like it works out. Now, one player that I think doesn't get enough credit and appreciation is the fact that Mackenzie Weegar got picked up, because he was a phenomenal defenseman in Florida, and he played amazing. And I think Calgary fans should be excited about what they have there. The big one, I think, is Chris Tanev, who needs to stay healthy, because he was really missing in their lineup, and he really needs to be back into it, because also Vancouver missed out on him when he left and signed with Calgary. So that's the big takeaway. And Markstrom needs to be better against Oilers, because they seem to be his kryptonite.
Hey, I will say this. When you were just talking just a few minutes ago here, but when we're talking about the situation here with Calgary and Weegar, I want you guys to know a lot of people have just said, okay, well, we kind of feel between Weegar, if they can get Nazem Kadri, hey, this is going to work out well. If they sign Huberdeau, that happened. And if they can sign Weegar, then they'll come out ahead on everything, which I 100% agree. Now, a lot of people think that, just because Weegar said, oh, yeah, I'd be interested, at signing long term. Everybody says that. Well, there are reports, and there are several. I'm hearing from 5 different places, some different than others that don't relate and connect with each other, some East, some Western Conference. And those groups are actually saying that their agent is talking, and this is coming right out of Calgary. The agent for Weegar is talking with Treliving, and they're both excited about some options. I think it's a matter of making salary cap work down the road. And I actually think before camp starts here, guys, Calgary is going to be a pretty happy franchise once they get Weegar under the belt.
Fair enough. I mean, again, Calgary, I think they'll bounce back. They have a good system in place. I mean, Daryl Sutter, not everyone gels, but we saw that with Mike Babcock and with Marner, as we talked a little bit earlier. And I'm interested in, maybe Jamie Basco can answer how he's going to see John Tortorella and Tony DeAngelo together in Philly, because that's going to be a colorful commentary that happens. But I mean, you don't have to like your coach. You have to just, you have to push yourself.
So yeah, Sutter and Tortorella.
Sutter's a Tortorella, Western tough guy. Yep, 100%.
Yeah, it is true, and that's what. And you just need to find the right players in that mix, right? And so it's going to be quite interesting, man. Jordan has a question here. He's interested in. Now I don't know.
0.0.
And this is Alexander Keese, IPA. But we obviously, by hearing some of the responses from my pal Pawel, he's had a few too many before he came on air here with you guys here tonight. But
that's
no,
I can stand you.
Okay, hey, I want to touch in on Jim. Jim, he's one of our former guests here as well, and Jim is a massive Rangers fan. So he's talking about Rangers training camp looks interesting already. He's looking at Brennan Mothman to make line 3. Oh my goodness!
Oh, the young rookie line.
Yeah, well, man, I got to tell you, Otham. Man, this guy is incredible. They are looking good, the Rangers, and then their system and their development. Now, on September 28th, I'm trying to get all my dates down. So Alex Thomas, who actually with Chittle, actually support, because he's the play-by-play broadcaster. He's been on 2 different seasons with us. He is now the play-by-play broadcaster, runs all the media and content for the Hartford Wolfpack of the American Hockey League. So he is trying to get on our show. But currently, he's just sent into their public relations to run through Chris Drury, because they cannot just show up on any show anymore, and he's got to get permission. So I'm hoping that we can get some inside information, Jim, of what's going on, and have Alex Thomas on. And if you want to know any information, you can actually follow him. If you go through some of our stuff, you can be able to see that we follow Alex Thomas. He especially loves to be on Twitter. You can follow his broadcasts. And I do want to put another plug in here. You're going to hear me talking about some of our random guests. It's crazy. We're going to get some of our returning guests this year. I don't think Pawel and myself are going to get much time to talk once we get all these guests on. But next week, we promised it last year. Never happened. The playoffs came. They got 2 or 4 games, I can't remember, they called in the playoffs for ESPN. But next week, September 14th, be here for 7 p.m. Leah Hextall, play-by-play, first full-time play-by-play female announcer for ESPN and the NHL, will be on with us. Now, she's going to talk about all the haters. She's going to talk about overcoming. She's got some great takes that I hope you guys will listen to. You're going to have a chance with all of our guests. Most of the guests we're going to be able to bring on live. Some will be pre-recorded, but you'll have a chance with Leah Hextall to even throw some stuff in the live comments and stuff. But I'm telling you, any haters, we're just going to ignore you, because that's all you're worth if you're haters. If you don't appreciate, you can just stay quiet, because, man, I'm telling you, she is a trailblazer, and I'm really excited to have her on so that she can talk about how women are trailblazing in the career with hockey right now, and especially at the highest levels.
I'd like to say that the only thing I hate is you not having a beard, and I think that is what we should all gang up together and persuade you to do. But that's the only thing I'm going to put out there, right? Maybe I'll get Leah Hextall on board with it.
I just want everyone to recognize I am an authentic man, and I believe that all men with beards lie, and I won't lie. So the only time you're going to catch me with a beard is come playoff time, when the Edmonton Oilers begin their playoff hunt, which, by the way, right behind me, you see it. I'm calling it. Next week we're going to do a season primer for this coming year with Leah. But right behind me, Pawel, that's the finalists for the Western Conference once again, led by Makar and McDavid, Colorado and Edmonton next year. This year, next year. That's who you're looking in your final 2. So anyway.
How much beer have you had now? All right. Well, since you brought it up, and since Cale Makar is one of the most dynamic, electric defensemen in the NHL right now, do you believe that Colorado can repeat with the losses that they've sustained, with losing Darcy Kemper, Andre Burakovsky, Nazem Kadri?
Yeah. So let's just put it this way. We, in our little primer yesterday, we talked about this when we were just getting set up and running our tests. You just lost Darcy Kemper. A lot of people did not give Darcy Kemper the credit that he should have had. And this year, who did they bring in? Georgiev? That's their goalie? Gorgiev?
Well, Pavel Francois. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So Francois and Gorgiev, sorry, I will announce it right. Even the Oilers didn't want him, and they felt Mike Smith was an upgrade over that, or Koskinen.
No.
Yeah.
They didn't want him.
They did not want him. They did not. No, they didn't want him. He's not a proven number 1 goaltender. Come on. You don't win a cup with Gorgiev. Like, come on. Who out there really believes that? If you guys believe that, put it in here. Let Pawel give him your opinion. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm out to lunch, and Colorado's going to get there because of their offense and their defense, but it's going to be their goaltending. The goaltending is going to let them down in the playoffs when they get that far, because they're not going to be able to stop any other teams past that this year. No way, Jose. So anyway, I think they can absorb Kadri, not a problem. But they also lost. They lost Burkowski, I believe, too, right? Did they not leave Burkowski?
Yeah, Burakovsky went to Seattle.
Yeah, I mean, he was a beast in the playoffs as well. I mean, so that's I don't think they're going to absorb it. You think they're going to absorb it?
I think they can. I think they can handle it because they have a lot of firepower, and you have your core. And similar to what Tampa did with the repeat, even though they lost their third line, they were able to come back. Now, I think Kadri's a bigger loss given he's their second line center, and that's very important. I think that's where you have to wonder, would they replace him, or would JT Compher continue to be elevated in that role, or will somebody else step up, right? Like that's kind of the question. On the back end, I mean, they're set, they're solid. You know, the only real loss is Jack Johnson going to Chicago, but I think they can do it. Honestly.
So I love James' take. Now remember, I believe James, you said you're a Florida fan, so I love your take. Bobrovsky, trade to Colorado. If you guys if you eat half his salary, maybe could that be possible?
That'd be an interesting trade.
And poor Jim, I don't know if he likes me tonight. No ex-Ranger haters.
Jim must be happy that, or maybe he's not, and maybe he can let us know in the comments what he thought of Jacob Trouba being announced as the captain for the New York Rangers. That was an interesting choice. I texted a friend who's a big Rangers fan. Not Jim, I'm sorry. I know more than one Rangers fan. I know. Shocking. And he said, it's good and bad, because I said, I'm sorry, because he's definitely a polarizing figure. I mean, He was good in Winnipeg, but, he's had some questionable hits, which we've talked about. Borderline, are they appropriate? Is it punishable, suspendable? Right. You guys can let us know in the comments whether you think so or not. But, he really plays at the edge. And, And Dustin, you're right. Joe Sakic does have a plan. Lehkonen is going to have to step up his game. He was a good pickup for them, and they're very happy. He scored back-to-back game-winning goals to get them from the Western Conference final to the next level. So good on him, right?
Yeah. Well, actually, this is interesting. So Jim actually being a the former Ranger, so the Ranger fan says that he believes he leads by example. Hey, which is a great take. And Jordan talks about how Newhook, he's going to have to play way more minutes. And I love Newhook, and I really hope that he has the ability to play those extra minutes this year. But I do hope that they don't rush him. I feel pretty confident in what Sakic's built over there, that's probably not going to happen at all, right? So, okay, so this is how James proposes. Bob will have his salary 50% retained if there's a deal made, and he waives it. Kevin Weeks talked about goalies still being moved, and absolutely. And I will say, anything Kevin Weeks talks about, he's probably one of the most plugged in that is not credited with being one of the most plugged in. Even though he's got weird little tweets and Facebooks.
Semi-half face selfie. Yeah. I wonder if he's just eating at that moment and he still wants to announce something. So he's just stuff in his face.
I do want to take just a moment. We'll come back to some NHL stuff here, guys. But I do want to take a moment and just kind of mention some people are talking and just saying, hey, hockey's about to start up. I want to remind you that hockey has already started. There's training camps and stuff going on, and the seasons are about to start in junior hockey. It's happening everywhere, not just the NHL and the American Hockey League. For example, the Continental Hockey League is up and running right now. They just finished one of their big tournaments actually recently. Now, we do have a guest. We're going to be pre-recording our guest actually. I just want to make sure I get his name right and do you justice, Carl. So his name is Carl Manson. He's an editor for Hockeyverse. He is the guide to post-Soviet hockey over there in the KHL. And I'm not sure if you guys are familiar, but there are tons of Canadian players right now that had signed and went over to play in the KHL in spite of the war and the things that are going on so that they can make a living. So there is some good stuff happening over there. But Jamie's also going to talk about us because there is a player that got held back. There was a lot of politics dealt with it. We'll talk to you guys about that when Jamie comes on in a couple weeks, a little bit more specific, because there's a lot of misinformation that is really out there right now, unfortunately. So,
yeah, and there was some fear about Kirill Kaprizov, the real deal, about being held back, but all that got worked out. James, Denver already did get started with camp from NCAA, like these players, even the rookies in the NHL are starting to get going, There's going to be a lot of hockey. I mean, the World Juniors just ended. That was exciting. It was in a thrilling end with Canada,
Okay. Hey,
Finland.
so Pawel, give us your take on the whole thing with the attendance and there are some people that have made a lot of comments out there in the media, especially in the United States, kind of ripping on Edmonton, saying all this stuff. Give us your take on that. Like, what's your thoughts?
Well, I mean, there's two things at play. First off, it's summer in Edmonton, which if people are from here, they would know that there's a limited short summer season where it's warm outside and people like to get out, go on patios, hang out, travel, as well as kids, offer summer from school for summertime. Yep. So they're traveling, they're going to the mountains, they're visiting family abroad. The other thing is the big Hockey Canada scandal and how it's been poorly managed. Now, all the facts aren't answered. We've been following the story on our Facebook page, so make sure you tune in. But really, just the poor response from leadership up above, that it's just people weren't interested. Now, that being said, there were some teams initially where there was games at 2 p.m, like when people are at work. So it's tough to, take time off and go to a game.
Especially in a working city, right? You got a blue-collar city.
And prices for tickets weren't exactly cheap,
I wasn't going. I wasn't going at those prices. They needed to be about 50% cheaper for me to go. There was no way I was going to be paying those kind of prices.
And if people tuned into the later games, and of course, a friend of the show who's been on the show, Jake, he attended quite a few of the games. And when he went to the Canada game, Canada-Finland final game, it was packed. It was busy.
Yeah.
But again, there's 500 fans, but there's a whole lot of factors that are at play where people, don't want to go or can't go, right?
So talking about attendance here, Jim says Arizona has fewer attendance than their minor league club.
So surprising fact, there was a report today that came out that said that Arizona's ticket sales are up by 50% this season. Now, you can joke about that. It's low, but I'm just saying it's up, right?
Oh my goodness.
I got to be honest. I will say, like, for all the jokes that we've made about Arizona and all the rants we've had about it, I really think that the atmosphere at ASU would be phenomenal. I've been to that arena because I've been for a show next door, but like it's great atmosphere. I love it, and I think people would have a good time, especially young people who want to experience it, right? And Arizona's not competitive, but they should be a fun team to watch. They're not going to win a lot of games, but those guys are going to be playing their heart out.
Oh, absolutely. And hey, a great point here that was just brought up also was the scandal, the Hockey Canada scandal, especially when the game was in Canada. There was a lot of people that had mixed emotions, and I believe there was a bit of a boycott also for a lot of fans. It might have only been 1,000 fans, but 1,000 less fans makes quite the difference. Unfortunately for the young men that were, vying and having that one-time experience, it was kind of lost out on. So, hey, Jim, I know we've talked about this loss, our take on the Coyotes overall. I like what their system has in place. I like the players as an organization. I'm a little worried where they're going, because it seems like every 3-4 years as the players come in and they don't go anywhere down the road. So they're going to have to be looking at maybe a 7-year with their general manager in place to really give them a chance for that team to develop. But I'm still saying at this point, Pawel, I do not see hockey being able to make it in Arizona, even if they and I hate that, and I know that Sean Fiery, one of our guests, Tampa Bay fan, lives in Arizona. He only goes there when the Tampa Bay Lightning, I'm guessing, actually come to play. By the way, Sean Fiery coming on our show. Put a plug in for him, man.
Oh, he's coming on our show in January. It's going to be exciting. He's going to come watch Edmonton and Calgary play the Tampa Bay Lightning. He's coming down. He's asked for some suggestions. I gave some good ones. You gave none. So clearly I know the city better than you. You know nothing about Edmonton or Calgary.
Well, that's because some of us work. We don't have all the time to sit at home and play video games.
Well, listen. What else are you going to do in life? But
Oh
so he's
man.
coming down and he's going to have some thoughts about the team. Can Tampa Bay go to the final again? I mean, they've gone 3
Yeah.
out of the 4 times in the last little bit. You know, that's a strong team. Yeah, they've lost a couple guys. They've lost Andre Palat, which was a big loss for them, you know, to New Jersey. But I think they could still push. They have the core there: Steven Stamkos, Nikita Kucherov, and of course Vasilevsky. You can never count that goaltender out. So,
Oh, absolutely, right? Absolutely. I do want to put a push in here. So I'm still working on a few details. So early October, I'm trying to bring Willie Palov in. So he is a sports writer. He works and follows the Halifax Mooseheads of the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League. So he knows everything Nathan McKinnon from back in the day, as well as when it talks about Jonathan Drouin, some of those guys that played there back in the day, as well as he writes for the Red Line Report, and he's a contributor to the Red Line Report. So we have him coming on. He has asked to do a pre-recorded show, though, just because of the fact that it's quite late in Halifax, and we're not able to get on early enough because, well, at least I work during the day. I guess maybe Pawel could actually get.
I'll do all the work then. You don't have to be on the show. Clearly, you're replacing me with other people's opinions, so maybe this is my turn to flip the tables. And I do want to mention one thing about Arizona. I think the problem is that Gary Bettman really is pushing it. So unless there's a change at the commissioner level in the NHL, Arizona's staying where they're at. The biggest question I think that they have is whether that arena will be approved. Right now, it's in the preliminary stages of council approving it in Tempe. Will it happen officially? That has yet to be seen. But that's where I think the first decision needs to be made, because without a new arena, you're kind of hooped.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, great point. James just brought up Uyghur was a Moosehead.
Oh.
Yeah, so that'll be a great conversation for Willie Palov as well. I do also want to put another plug in. I'm telling you guys, guests are coming out. I don't know why they would want to come on this show. But I mean, maybe because you're just a bunch of hockey crazed fans, and we've just told them that, hey, we'd love you guys to come on. And so we're always looking, though, for fresh. You guys have contacts, you know, people. We have a few we cannot mention because we don't have anything solid or had conversations, but we will have more. And this year, again, we will be promoting around women's hockey. Maybe James, you can put a little punch in there for the Force. I'll let James put that in the comments, and then you can mention it. But I do want to mention for women's hockey, we want to give a lot more onus into women's hockey as well. We have always been big supporters. If you guys remember last year, Cassidy Sobe, who, by the way, is back in North America. I do not know why she doesn't get on some of those Team Canadas. She is like one of the best goals against average and save percentage goalies in the history of women's hockey.
And fun fact for Hans and all Toronto fans, she practices with Marner in the offseason.
She does. No wonder she's so darn good. Yeah. Anyway, very, very interesting. So, anyway, so what was I saying? Oh, yes. So we have, you guys can actually look him up. So I just had a connection this week. So we will be bringing on so maybe James is familiar, but we are bringing on former Florida Panther and also Atlanta Thrasher. He had a very brief career in the NHL, but lots in the NHL. Still played hockey for another, I believe, 10 plus years in senior men's league. He was a big, tough boy playing defense. So Kyle Rossiter, he is an Edmonton boy, and I just got off the phone with him today, and we have booked him for October. So we have Kyle Rossiter booked for October. He is going to come on, share some incredible stories. I made a connection through a friend, and this friend was saying some of the stories he was saying of his first fights, you know, when he's going up some of the big tough guys. So let's get his take on fighting in the game. Do you remember how big that episode was?
Oh,
We had over 30,000 views just to hear us talk about fighting in hockey. Should it be allowed? Should we bring it back? So I'm excited to hear what Kyle has to say and get his take on that kind of thing. So there's another guest that we have lined up. Okay, last thing I'm going to bring up here. We're going to get ready, guys, to call it a show. Jim, hey, very good point. Roller hockey will soon be in the Olympics. I've heard the same. Absolutely. I think that the game of roller hockey, if you look all throughout different parts of the United States, is becoming larger and larger, especially in places where it's, warm weather. Why not?
Yeah.
Roller hockey, the hockey skills are fairly similar that are needed. My question is body checking. Body checking in roller hockey. Man, the force you go in with, eh? Imagine getting one of those, the heels of those things hitting you in the head. Oh my goodness.
You have different padding with roller hockey, don't you? It's a little bit different than hockey, so the blow may be a little bit more intense, but
okay.
Yeah, no, it's exciting. Any way that hockey can grow naturally at the grassroots movement is always a positive because it gets people excited about it. It brings new fans in, and we love seeing that. Whatever it is. And, Jim mentioned ball hockey for women is growing. Ball hockey should be growing everywhere. It's big in a lot of communities. Johnny Grant, who's kind of one of the local organizers here, is really good about organizing it, getting it out. Thank you, James. Yeah. I think you mean my job is amazing. So Evan's not doing so well. He just keeps shouting out random people. He's almost got borderline dementia where he's forgetting where he is and shouting out random names.
I do just want to give a mention right now to Pawel, and congratulations. I want to give him a mention right now to Pawel, and here's another nice thing I like to say about him, that he is a wonderful father, and if you guys didn't know, he's a new daddy this season. Last year, he wrapped up his season. He had one show where he brought his little guy on. I thought we were going to have him maybe tonight, but you never know, right? So maybe one of our shows, if you guys hang around, you could see the replacement for Pawel in the shows ahead, as soon as his young fella can start talking a little bit of hockey with us.
He says nothing at all, and he knows more about Evan than hockey. So, but thank you, Evan. I appreciate it. And Evan, I want to say congratulations for having another grandkid. And I think Evan has enough grandkids to start his own NHL franchise team that could probably compete with the Arizona Coyotes, because they probably bring in more fans because of your whole huge family than that entire organization.
Yeah, we just had our grandchildren 12, 13, and 14 this in July here. Well, actually, it was July. One was a few months earlier. So in 3 months, we had 3 grandkids. So it was quite the thing. So Pawel's starting his journey. I'm enjoying later on in my journey, but I can say this: you're not really an empty nester when the kids keep coming home, and they, it's like the old Cosby Show for the folks that are older. Your kids walk in, grab a grocery bag, and start going through your freezers and your cupboards, and they walk out with their groceries and all happy they had a good shop.
Yeah. Bank of dad.
Oh man. So, there's a congratulations. There you go from Dustin. Dustin wants to say thanks and congrats there.
Thank you, Dustin.
He just had a girl also there, 6 weeks old.
Congratulations, Dustin. That's exciting.
So, okay, guys. So next week, make sure you follow. Now, if you follow us on Facebook, that is the one place specifically that we post things. So we post all about junior. We locally, it was just brought out that the Capital City Recreational Hockey League, which I used to play in, one of the officials has now made it. So he has now moved up into the Junior Hockey League. Alberta, I think it's the AJHL that he just got hired into. So good for him for moving from men's rec league and getting those opportunities. So we'll mention all those things. Send us information. You'll see at the bottom, 2guyshockeytalk@gmail.com. Send us suggestions. Send us ideas. If you just want to chat, ask questions, we'll do our best to answer back. On the left-hand side, you see it says 2guysandhockeytalk.com. Our site has been purchased. We started to build it. It's a lot of work as we're volunteers at what we do here. As you can see, even though I say that he doesn't work, my buddy here works all day long. So we do our best to give you as much content. Basically, we're just staying up at night trying to make all the connections and find the info so we can share as much and talk as much hockey as we possibly can.
I have a notebook in my office, and I wrote, "How can I prove Evan wrong tonight?" And that's what I write down, different idea. But in all seriousness, no. It's been a great summer. We're looking forward to the upcoming season. We have a lot of great guests, but honestly, none of this is possible without you guys. We're just two random dudes talking. You guys make this show amazing. You guys are smart, intelligent, engaging, and you guys keep coming back for some reason. You know, I told my wife that what's it called? That clearly more than one person has to listen to me, and it's true. It's Evan, but the rest of you, I mean, it's voluntary. So,
well, any final thoughts, buddy? Any final thoughts that you have?
I just want to ask you one quick question before we end. Do you think that Austin Matthews, and you guys can let us know in the comments, repeats and does what Pawel does and scores another 60-plus goals this season? Evan, quick.
The answer is yes. Done. Sit on it. I don't know which way that goes. So, well, guys, it's been a fabulous time. Look forward to seeing you next week, 7 p.m. every Wednesday night. Share, follow, subscribe. If you follow us on YouTube as we're building our YouTube platform, you can easily get it, and it'll give you all the notifications to be able to follow if you want afterwards, or continue to follow us on the Sports Empire, wherever you find us. Follow us, guys. We'd love to hear from you. Join us on the live show. And next week, 7 p.m., Leah Hextall, play-by-play for the NHL, will be with us as our special guest. In the meantime and in between time,
keep your sticks on the ice.
Oh, and by the way, make sure to keep your head up.